Okay, good evening. We, the Planning and Zoning Commission, call this meeting to order on August 1st, 2023 at 6:08 p.m. We do have a quorum. Dan may be coming in anytime. We'll see. Looks like, Dave, there's nobody here to talk about any business citizens that would like to speak about items not on the agenda.
I have not heard from anyone this week.
Okay. Item number 1 on the agenda, approval of the regular meeting minutes of July 5th, 2023.
I'd like to make an amendment to change the date from June 5th to July 5th, 2023.
Right, just that was a little typo that was noted. Okay, so that's on the copy. Anything else?
And was that a motion from there?
Yes.
With an amendment?
Okay, I'm sorry. So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 The motion passes. Item number 2, consideration and possible action on approval of the construction plans for Montgomery Bend, Section 2, development number 2203.
Right, good evening. Starting on page 7 of your packets, you'll see a letter from me regarding recommendation of approval of the plans for Section 2. Not too long ago, I believe the beginning of June, you all approved the plans for Section 1. They are moving forward with construction of that and working on Section 2. So flipping through the packet, the following page, you'll see an aerial that's showing the layout of where the sections are. Timeline so far that has occurred, and then an area for May showing the current state of that site, which is clear. Following that, you'll see starting on page 9 through 29 are the actual construction plans for the development. As discussed at the last meeting, there's not things that are different from what we had previously talked about, just more clarifications to fix issues or additional notes regarding street lights, street signage. We have new details for street signs so that all signs going down are the same black poles with the pineapple finial on top, so everything matches throughout the city. Other than that, it's a pretty straightforward plan set. There's not they meet all of the city's rules. There's no variances requested. So relatively straightforward. See any questions for me?
Yeah, Chris, I know we always spend a lot of time, and you take a lot of time on drainage in general. That long detention pond, I think we talked about this before. It's noted on there, it's property by others.
Yes. So the reason it is because that's a different, it's not being constructed as part of this plan set. So when this goes out and they publicly bid it, as they're required to, that is not part of the construction because that was done by a separate contract. So they've had a contract for the clearing and grubbing, a contract for the masquerading and excavation of the detention,
Yes.
a contract for, I can't remember if they're doing paving at the same time, but water sewer drainage and paving section 1, contract for water sewer drainage and paving section 2, section 3, and then we just got started conversations with them regarding construction and approvals of the recreation fitness center.
Yes.
So they're starting that process.
Great, yeah, I know, and we had talked about that before. And as far as that retention area, the only thing I wanted to ask is just on the east end of the cul-de-sac, on the east end, right there at the east end of the detention, at the cul-de-sac, it shows a earthen swale.
Correct.
And obviously that's going to be a fairly major drainage through there, but is there also some, like, for lack of a better word, like a concrete apron or something?
So that is an extreme event overflow. So the only time that that is used is during extreme events when the storm sewer system is completely full or clogged.
Okay,
So there is, it is just a, let me find my drawing here.
I just wasn't sure what part we're responsible, but that's going to get done
That is
now.
their pond. So
Yeah.
we're responsible for the pipes,
Yes,
but the surface, the detention pond, the drainage channel is property and responsibility of the mud. So we had them add a note just to drive home the point. On the bottom of page 10 of your packets, a big note saying, City of Montgomery is not responsible for maintaining the detention pond for this development. Montgomery County Municipal District number 224 is responsible.
okay. And
So,
that's at page 29 is what I was looking at.
correct,
Okay.
correct.
Okay, great.
And then so Marion, you asked earlier about the landscape plan. So you look at sheet 29, the very last page of your packet. It's high level, but that is what is required.
Okay.
So showing their planting, and then with a heavy planting around the entrance and the recreation center. But again, the only thing that you're approving today is the section 2.
Yeah.
So are there, is this got sidewalks in it, or is it having a
Yes.
walk path? Or?
Sidewalks on both sides of the street.
Okay, all right. Is there some, like, that's how they get through the neighborhood, but there's nothing like in the back where they walk and do trails or anything? They're gonna have that rec center.
Do they have the rec center up kind of front and center? They do not, at least that I have seen, any type of trail system along the ponds.
I'm just wondering,
They're
because you know that's the first thing those kids are gonna want to do.
Yeah.
Right.
I do have another question, and it's just because I don't know. On page 11, second to the last page of the packet, I guess I could blow that up and see what that is. But I see that there are numbers circled, like 4 and 5. What is that?
That is the block.
Okay,
So when you subdivide, you have a block and a section.
Okay.
So the plans that we're looking at is section 2, so those circled numbers would be,
that's what we're looking at.
Montgomery Bend, section 2, block 1.
Okay,
lot
all right,
2, 3, 4, whatever it
okay,
is. So those numbers will also be reflected on the plat
all right.
when that comes to you.
And I know we're focused on section 2 right now tonight, but I'll just mention, you had touched on the trees, and it was good to see, since the last meeting, about the entryway and the recreation center, but we appreciate having the detail now of the trees. The 309 lots, but 2 trees per lot, 20% reserve. And let me just ask you out of interest, because people were asking before about, the 16 parking spaces are for the recreational area,
Correct.
okay? That's a lot. We're looking at a total of 722 trees from the notes I see on there, but I was a little confused about, it mentioned minimum 30 gallon, but some are going to be even larger than that?
So what they're required to plant are, I believe, 30-gallon trees. So they're, but what they're proposing, what do they have on here?
It does,
So
well, that's,
it's 65 gallons proposed, 100 gallons proposed.
okay, because when you try to blow that, when I try to blow it up, I couldn't
It
read
is
it.
pretty-
It was so
it's
tiny,
pretty,
I couldn't read it.
Even clear, but essentially they're live oaks on the houses that are proposed as 45 gallon. They have a handful of larger live oaks surrounding the recreation center and the entrance.
Okay,
So, but all the houses are proposed with 2 live oaks at 45 gallon apiece.
okay. But
Do
I
they-
got- Well, just that, if you try to blow up the part that lists all that.
It's blurry.
It's hard to read it.
It is.
So appreciate that, okay.
So has it got a sprinkler system, or do you install it yourself when you buy the property?
It'll be installed with the builder, the builder.
It's part of your house?
Right.
I just want to know.
That's what I do, homeowner moves in, there's an irrigation system there that's already running.
All right.
Yeah, definitely.
I just wondered how they're going to keep the trees alive.
Right.
Because it's hot.
We need them here. Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
Is it gated?
It is not.
So anybody can drive into that rec center?
They can get up to it, but.
I know they can't probably get in it,
Right,
but,
that it would be.
okay.
Yeah, there'll be a security card or something. All right.
Do the streets vary in width, or is it consistent throughout Section 2?
All the streets meet the city standard 28 foot,
Okay.
so there's no variance or.
And the sidewalks are up or rolled down? You know, not sidewalks, the curbs?
The rollover curves.
Okay.
So, yeah, appreciate the updates on the not only the recreation center, but just the order that is, because we did talk about that before. We weren't sure what was happening when.
Yeah, and so the next thing that you'll likely see on this development is the final plat for Section 1. They've sent that in, so we're reviewing it, so I would assume that probably, potentially at your September meeting, you'll see that for approval. They might delay that because as soon as they do the final plat, they have to put up a 100% financial guarantee for all remaining construction works, and typically they'll delay it, but that's up to them at the time.
Is it going to connect somehow? Will it ever be able to connect? Like, have a back entrance? Or is there something back there? I'm trying to visualize
So
it.
there's a property, so if you look at sheet 8 of your packets,
Yes?
that overall, it's kind of hard to see because we cut it off slightly, but there is a triangle piece of property south of this between it and the creek.
Okay.
And those are onto private, that would be a section of Waterstone, which
Okay.
would be private streets.
All right.
It was discussed early on in the development process, and they discussed with the developer, or the owner of that property, and he was not wanting to have a connection.
Because from the overhead view, it looks real easy. It would
Right.
make, like, oh, we'll just make a pass-through. Okay. Just wanted to
So
ask.
the water and sewer would be able to be looped, it's set up that way. Right now, they're going to be installing a lift station on their site to serve them sewer, because they were unable to get a sewer easement from the property owner to the south.
Oh.
But they've designed it such that it's deep enough, there's a path that the city could extend in the future and eliminate that lift station.
Where is it located on the map?
The lift station is within Section 1.
Okay.
If you're looking at Section 1, the streets at the very southwest corner, that bend, that 90-degree turn, it is right in that turn.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions?
I'll make a motion to approve the construction plans for Montgomery Bend, Section 2.
We have a motion,
I will second it.
and we have a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. No opposition. Okay, on to commission inquiry. If there's any thoughts that anybody has, any questions or ideas, now's a good time.
Just real quick, I see Damon put his fence up.
Did he? We were talking about that earlier, and
Did he get a, was there a permit
Oh,
needed
he
for
must have
that?
just did it.
we
Really?
don't need a permit for it, but he did need the P&Z approval, which he got at a meeting
Yeah,
That I said down to.
several.
yeah, I was wondering, I didn't know how far, I forget what that was and what we approved, because he used, looks like a used metal panel.
Yeah, he was taking that same panel, what he told us was he was gonna take that same, I think the same fence even.
Yeah.
Right.
And just,
Move it back.
Moved it back.
Did you see the deck on the White House they built without approval?
Looking back on that bill to
No, you
just since we're talking about, I'll just mention that one afterthought everybody had about that property is there's just no storage. And I think that's, we hated to see that happen, but
What's that?
there's very little storage in that, the wings. And
Well,
as a retail.
he did that to himself.
I know, and I'm not saying it's good or
Yeah.
bad, I'm just saying, that was the only reason we could even see why they would
Yeah.
want that, but, anyway, that was discussed over quite a while, wasn't it?
So no, I didn't realize the deck, really didn't even notice.
It wasn't part of the original plan that we approved,
Looking at, you're talking about where now?
that White House that they redid.
Oh,
They're going to do real estate in supposedly.
Yeah.
And I'll reach out to them and let them know we need to see plans for y'all to look at.
Yeah,
Also-
we looked at some plans, but I don't remember if the deck was in it.
The deck was not in there.
Okay.
And I want to say, when we looked at it, weren't they going to remove some of the back of that house because, or were they trying to enclose it because there was an easement between them?
If you recall, I believe they came back to us with a, version 2 once they got into it. They said, hey, we can save this.
That's what they-
gotta clear
okay.
that whole, northern end off
Yeah.
first. But then once they got all the stuff out of the house and really kind of opened things up where they could see it, they said, hey, we can actually save it.
Okay.
Right.
So they ended up keeping it.
Right. Okay. And I guess they're still progressing on the old floor shop.
Yeah, they've got the frame up, and I think they got cement down.
Where's that at?
The old Pecan Hill place.
Yes, yep, so they're moving through with the, with the construction of that, the reconstruction or the addition of that.
Yeah, okay. And I just want to mention, we've had a lot of good discussions over the last 6 months about, the two subjects really, the 45-foot, 50-foot, 60-foot lots, but also the setbacks on the sides. And I just wanted to mention, I've talked informally to Dave recently, and I'm just putting this out here since you're here, Chris. If Dave and Chris and Catherine and City Council could really help us all, I feel like there's still a little bit of a blurry disconnect there on how we're handling the side, especially on the side. It's really two separate subjects, not so much the 45s, 50s, but the side setbacks and air conditioning units. And we talked to Pulte about that idea about in the back, but we never really got complete confirmation from Pulte on how they're going to do that in the rear. And I just don't, I guess it depends on the footprint.
And I think that the current the current ordinance is, 10 feet. What am I trying to say?
So right
Already
now-
doesn't allow
Right, the way the ordinance is written today, no ACs or anything else should be in side yards. And that was a failure of the city on the building inspection side when they went out and they saw the stuff, either when they were looking at the plan review or, when they were out inspecting. So when the city first, saw some of so years ago, the city had a 5-foot side yard as its ordinance. And probably about 2012, 2014, changed to a 10-foot. And so with the 10-foot side setback, the way the ordinance is written is no accessory equipment that's attached to the house is allowed in a side yard. But when you had a 10-foot, side yard, again, it just never got caught when the plans were reviewed. It never got inspected or it never got caught out in the field. wasn't that big of a deal when you had 10 foot to work with. But when you have 5 foot to work with and you put a 4 foot wide AC in there, you're, down to where you can't, really get through. So when these guys wanted a 5 foot setback, we, really just, more than anything else, just wanted to clarify for them, this is what the existing code says. So it wasn't an addition, to what we told them. It was, this is what our ordinance says. And so everyone is aware up front, so nobody can, come back and say, well, we didn't know that, we weren't aware of that. It's, we, specifically pointed it out as part of that variance, that this is what the ordinance says today. We're not going to allow
Because
it.
when it first came up, way back when we first started Hills of Town Cricket, back up by the high school, I remember driving that thinking, there's a way they do it where they, and Chris, you might be able to answer this. They stagger, they don't end up having two ACs together on the two houses side by side. They either stagger the fences or they do something where they somehow.
That works if the same builder is building every house.
Yeah.
Like with Pulte said they could do that. But if you, had lots where, so you had, 4 or 5 different builders, or you could even,
Right.
have your own builder, that gets a lot harder to manage because, they're, the home builders aren't the same. And they're, not looking at it from a, from a larger perspective. They're just looking at their own lot.
Yeah.
And not really considering it. So, and again, a lot of the stuff that you see, both in Terra Vista and in Hills of Town Creek, the side yard fences don't come all the way up, so there's no fence in between there. Again, which, allows for room, to get out, but there's nothing that, and so with Pulte, one of the things that they said was, we want those fences to come all the way up because we don't want to see those AC units and, things like that. We want that stuff to be screened just because it makes the community look better.
Maybe that was part of my misconception of when they said maybe they meant AC units to the rear of the fence, not necessarily to the rear of the house.
That's one option, but again, the other option is just, well, don't build the house all the way out to the building line because the building line is 5 foot. It doesn't mean you have to fill that house up or, you have to fill the building envelope up. You can, there's a 1,000 different ways to slice it, but, if they're going to fill it up from building line to building line, they just need to be aware that the ordinance today does not allow for them to then put an AC unit in that side yard. And a lot of houses are, in talking with Redbird, and if you just look at a lot of the houses that are built today, one of the side walls is usually straight all the way down. But the other one, normally has some type of setback or jog in the building wall that allows for a little more room. So they just need to be conscious of it, with their floor plans, to plan ahead of time. We didn't want to, feel like, they were geared up to think one thing, and then, at the last minute, we tell them, no, you have to, you've got to change the way you're doing everything. This is what the ordinance says today, and we intend on enforcing it. So.
And who's enforcing that? What, our ordinance person now? Who goes, or is it a city inspector?
That would be the building inspector.
Yeah.
Because he's doing the plan reviews, he's doing the building inspection.
Okay.
So under an active, building permit, that would be the authority to ensure that it's being done right.
Okay,
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
all right. I'll make a motion to adjourn August 1st meeting.
I second it.
Sounds good. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. 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 The motion passes. Very good. Thank you for your input on that. We learn a little bit more every time.